Prefixes are letters added to the beginning of a word to alter or add meaning. If we take the word act and add the prefix re, we get react. The same applies in Spanish. By learning just a few simple prefixes, you can instantly boost your Spanish vocabulary overnight. In this video, we'll cover 10 of the most common Spanish prefixes. You ready? Let's get started. In no particular order, we're starting off with our first Spanish prefix, which is ante. Ante means before. Now, we use it to express an action or quality that previously existed in space and time. For example, if you've learned the parts of the body in Spanish, you know that hand means mano. So, if you or someone said ante mano, that would translate to beforehand. Example sentence time. If your friend told you, me lo contó todo de antemano, they would be saying, he told me everything beforehand. Pretty cool, right? By the same token, antebrazo means forearm. Antebrazo, forearm. Hey, now that we're talking about all these body parts, it sure would be helpful if you had a complete lesson on how to talk about your body in Spanish. Check out our video on the Spanish vocabulary for parts of the body to get a solid grasp on this key concept. But getting back to the prefix, ante, another common word you'll see it used is ayer, which means yesterday. So when we tag the prefix on the front, you end up with anteayer, anteayer, or the day before yesterday. Now, quick tip though, in most countries, native speakers will simply shorten the word and say antier, but we can just stick with anteayer. All right, nice job learning your first Spanish prefix. Now let's get moving because we've got 9 more to cover. On to our second prefix, auto. Auto roughly translates to self and used when referring to something self-referential. So here are some examples of using auto. Medicarse means to medicate. Automedicarse then means to self-medicate. Auto, which is the self, medicarse, to medicate. Automedicarse. Convencerse means to convince. Now again, adding auto, which is self, autoconvencerse means to convince oneself of something. Autoconvencerse. And aprendizaje means to study. Again, so if we add autoaprendizaje, what does that mean? That's right, to self-study. Autoaprendizaje. Just like you're doing right now. You can see how if you already know the vocabulary for the base word, it's super easy to change up their meanings with just one simple prefix. Make sense? For practice, try thinking of some verbs that describe actions that you can do to yourself, like talking to yourself. In these cases, you can tag auto onto the beginning of the verb to get your intended meaning across. And remember, if you want to practice this in real conversations, make sure to check out baselang.com, where you get access to unlimited one-on-one Spanish classes with native speaking teachers, all via Zoom. The third Spanish prefix we'll discuss here is mal. Mal means bad, and it indicates that an action is poorly done or even immoral. This one should be pretty easy to remember, as some of the first Spanish words you probably learned were good, which is bueno, and bad, which is malo. Plus, we use mal as a prefix in English too for similar purpose. I mean, think about the words like malnutrition or malpractice. These both indicate something bad, so just remember that mal in Spanish has the same function. Some common words you'll see with this particular prefix are maltratar, to mistreat. Mal, which is bad, and tratar, which is to treat. Maltratar, to mistreat. Then you have malentender, which is to misunderstand. Mal, bad, entender, understand. Malentender, to misunderstand. And we also have malagradecido, which is ungrateful. Mal agradecido. Agradecido means grateful. So if you add mal agradecido, you get ungrateful. Suppose your colleague confides in you. Let's say he says, mi vecino siempre maltrata a su perro. This would be their way of saying, my neighbor is always mistreating his dog. Now, being able to express when you feel negatively about something is a huge asset when learning a foreign language. It opens up countless doors for conversation. But if you'd like to get a little more specific and varied with the feelings you're expressing, be sure to watch our lesson on emotions in Spanish. Afterwards, you'll never have trouble finding the right vocabulary to express yourself. And our next entry on this list should come as no surprise. On the opposite side of the coin, we have bien or ben. Unlike its counterpart, mal, bien, or ben are used to indicate good things. Bien, bueno, all means good things. For example, if someone is bien hablado, they are well spoken. Hablado means spoken. You add bien, you get bien hablado, well spoken. Similarly, bienvenido means welcome, and it is a word you'll probably hear when visiting a Spanish-speaking country. And sometimes just ben is needed for the prefix, like beneficiar, which means to benefit. Beneficiar. Benefit. So now that you know the basics of this prefix, you're ready for a sample sentence. Los niños de esa escuela son bien hablados y educados. Translates to, the kids of that school are polite and well-spoken. And hey, by the way, if you think I'm bien hablada or well-spoken, please consider subscribing to the Baselang YouTube channel. We make tons of helpful Spanish content for language learners of every skill level. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our awesome upcoming lessons. But moving on to our fifth prefix now, let's talk about this. This expresses the undoing or diminishing of an action. This. So adding this to the beginning of hacer to create this hacer, which means to undo. This to diminish, hacer to make, you make this hacer, to undo. Desplegar means to unfold. And desanimar means to discourage. Again, you have desplegar, which means to unfold, and desanimar, which means to discourage. Therefore, something you really don't want to hear while visiting a foreign country is this sentence. No quiero desanimarte, pero tus amigos ya se fueron. This means, I don't want to discourage you, but your friends are already gone. Yikes. If you ever find yourself in that sticky situation, be sure to deshacer or undo those friendships fast. Reaching the second half of our list now, we've got the Spanish prefix dis. Dis indicates denial, separation, or distinction. For instance, disentir means disagree. You have dis and sentir, disentir, disagree. We have difamar means slander. Difamar, slander. And we have disociar, which means dissociate. Disociar. So, imagine you and your spouse attended a movie that you loved, but they hated. You might say, mi esposo disiente de mi opinión. My husband disagrees with my opinion. Now, again, this one is pretty easy to remember since dis is also a common prefix in English that indicates the same general meaning. And continuing on with that trend, let's take a look at the Spanish prefix pre. Like in English, this prefix indicates a previous process or existence. Prefijar means to fix in advance. Pre-fijar, to fix. Prefijar, to fix in advance. Prever means to foresee. Prever, to see, you get foresee, prever. And we have predecir, which means to predict. Predecir means to predict. Predecir. You might see this prefix used when you watch the weather forecast. The weatherman or woman may say, se prevén lluvias fuertes para esta noche. And this means heavy rains are foreseen for tonight. Hey, while we're on the subject of weather, I just want to mention that we've got a complete guide on everything you need to know about weather vocabulary in Spanish. So be sure to give that a watch if you're not comfortable chatting about the weather quite yet. Now that we've got our 7th prefix out of the way, can you predecir or predict which prefix we'll learn next? Well, surprise. Our 8th prefix is actually a combination of 3. We have con, and co, which all mean with or together. They indicate union and directly correlate with the Spanish preposition con. To know when to use each one correctly, just remember that com is used before the letter M or B. So com is used before the letters M or B. Some words that you'll commonly see used in the conjunction with these prefixes are convivir, which means to live together. Con, which is with, vivir, to live, convivir, live together. Comparar, meaning to compare. Comparar, meaning to compare. And we have colaborar, which means to collaborate. Colaborar, which means to collaborate. And here's another one. See if you can spot in the following sentence. Mi madre creyó que comer en la cocina era lo más conveniente. It translates to, my mother thought that eating in the kitchen was more convenient. Did you catch which word in the sentence used the con prefix? If you say conveniente, you are correct. Once you know what to look out for, these things are pretty easy to spot. And here's another useful Spanish prefix for you to know. Coming in at number 9, we've got in. This prefix is used to indicate that something is in or inside. So adding the prefix to volver creates envolver, which means to wrap. Envolver, to wrap. By the same logic, enterrar means to bury. This is me burying something. Enterrar means to bury. And we have enamorar, which means to fall in love. Enamorar, fall in love. How romantic. So one sentence you might hear at a wedding is, nos enamoramos ni bien nos conocimos. We fell in love as soon as we met. And on that note, we're ready to see the final prefix on our list. Without further ado, let's get into it. Last but not least, we have entre. This one means between or among and indicates an intermediate position, situation, or reciprocal action. Thus, entreabrir means half open. Entreabrir, half open. We have entrever means to see signs of something. Entre and then ver means to see signs of something. And entrecruzar, which means to interweave. Entre and cruzar, which means to weave. Entrecruzar. With this knowledge in mind, it makes sense that la puerta estaba entreabierta, which means the door was half open. Congratulations! You now have an impressive 10 extra Spanish prefixes to add to your vocabulary toolbox. With just these 10 prefixes, you've gained the ability to create a limitless amount of new words. But the good news isn't over yet, because we have an extra 10 prefixes for you to learn in the full article linked in the description below. That's right, after reading our complete guide, you'll have a whopping total of 20 Spanish prefixes in your arsenal. And don't forget that this article also has some practice exercises centered around the Spanish prefixes so you can test your comprehension of the material. Once you get these down, you'll be modifying Spanish verbs, nouns, adjectives, and adverbs like a pro. And if after this you're ready for your next challenge, then why not put your knowledge to the test and schedule your first Baselang class today? At Baselang.com, you get access to unlimited one-on-one Spanish classes with native speaking teachers all via Zoom. Try your first week for only $1. Wow! Prefixes are pretty great, aren't they? But I'll let you in on a little secret. They're not the only Spanish tool you can use to instantly give an enormous boost to your vocabulary overnight. Another element of Spanish speech that grants you this power is cognates. And lucky for you, we've got a full video dedicated to explaining Spanish cognates in detail. So check that one out next for an extra turbo boost to your Spanish skills. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.